So look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah! What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, most weeks we go over a game preview, right? Most weeks we kind of talk about the opponent. We talk about what they do well, what they do not do well. We talk about the matchups of the game. We talk about how the game is set to go and what the impact should be for the Detroit Lions 2023 season. But we don't usually come back and revisit these games. We don't necessarily come back to the matchup and say, hey, this is how they did. This is how the predictions went. This is where we were right and where we were wrong, and just kind of give a genuine reaction as a Lions fan as to how the Detroit Lions played in their previous games. But as it is Monday and the Lions have just a couple of days before the Green Bay Packers, I wanted to sit down and go over this game. Just kind of give a broad reaction, a first take, and kind of just give my genuine thoughts and opinions about how the Detroit Lions played at home against their second division rival of the season. So with that being said, let's just take a look at it. The Detroit Lions, of course, improved to 8-2 yesterday, 4-1 at home and 2-0 in the division against those division rival Chicago Bears, a team that plays us very close at least once a year, a team that continuously plays us very tough. The Chicago Bears, unfortunately for them, fall to 3-8, 1-5 on the road, and not very well in the division. I believe they are now 0-3 in the division, 0-1 versus each of their three NFC North rivals. However, they really outplayed the Detroit Lions in most of this game. I would argue for most of the game, right? The game is 60 minutes. I would argue for 45, 50 minutes of that game, the Chicago Bears were the better team. They came out and they forced turnovers early. They were leading at the end of the first quarter. They were leading at the end of the third quarter. They were only down by 4 points going into halftime. And with 4 minutes left, they were up by 2 possessions. They outplayed the Detroit Lions pretty significantly. The Lions only scored in the last 2 minutes of the first half, and they only scored in the last 4 minutes of the fourth quarter. It was not a very good game for the Detroit Lions. One of the fluky, really poor games from Jared Goff. We're going to get into the stats in a little bit, but just kind of going over it, it was a very, very poor day for the Detroit Lions. And I want to take a look at the play-by-play. I want to take a look at the drives to start off with, because I do think there is some really interesting takeaways from this, right? And yes, I know that the Detroit Lions won, and I know that the Detroit Lions had a lot of struggles offensively, but I still think there's a glaring weakness on the defensive side of the football, right? I think there's a really big issue with the defense of the Detroit Lions, and I think it was glaringly obvious in this game. And if the Detroit Lions offense wasn't able to step up at the end, I really don't know if the defense would have been able to carry us to a victory, right? You take a look at the first drive for the Chicago Bears. For the 6th drive in a row, mind you, it was a 10-plus play drive, 70-plus play drive for a touchdown. Going all the way back to the first half of the Chargers games, through this drive, the Detroit Lions allowed 6 straight drives of 70-plus yards, 10-plus plays, and 7 points. It was not a good streak for the Detroit Lions to be on, and for a team that really truly isn't that good on offense, right? Justin Fields is a good quarterback, but the surrounding talent is not good enough. The Lions should not have given up 26, almost 30 points to the 3-8 Chicago Bears, and they should not be giving up 6 straight touchdown drives of over 70 yards. Now, they came back on offense and they weren't very good, right? 7 plays, Jared Goff threw an interception. Was it PI? Was it not PI? I think it's very hard to say. Right, it's really hard to judge intent on whether Jaquan Brisker meant to impede Sam Laporta on that interception. I give it half on Goff, half on Laporta, and just kind of half on bad luck. It does happen sometimes, so I kind of give it on Goff. Obviously, he did throw the pick, and he did throw it before Sam Laporta was officially open, so that goes on him. But again, one of the more unlucky plays of the drive. The Lions then make a stand on defense. It is a 9-play, 20-yard drive, taking 5 minutes off the clock, which isn't great, but they do force a punt just for Jared Goff to throw another interception. This interception is inexcusable. This interception should never have happened. It should never have been thrown. I'm not entirely sure what Jared Goff was looking at, but it was not very good. 2 plays later, the Detroit Lions get the football back. A fumble recovery forced by Cam Sutton, recovered by Alex Anzalone, puts the Detroit Lions in business, and they go on an 8-play 34-yard drive to make it even at 7-7. A really poor start for the Detroit Lions, but in the second quarter, late in the second quarter, they start making it a comeback and they start kind of putting some things together, right? They look a little more comfortable on offense. They move the ball a little bit better and they find their way into the end zone. Then again, of course, the Chicago Bears offense comes back out and they look pretty good. 15 plays, 62 yards. Again, long, methodical drives where the offense just looks better than they should, and the defense doesn't seem to have very many answers for the mobile quarterback. They score a field goal, but the Detroit Lions, with 2 minutes left, they go on a 10-play drive. Jared Goff, 6 of 7 for 70-plus yards, throws a dart to Amon-Ra St. Brown in the end zone for a touchdown to put the Detroit Lions up 14-10. Going into the half, the Chicago Bears do take a kneel down, officially giving the Detroit Lions another defensive stop on defense, but again, it was 1 play. Kneel down really does not count. So as we're looking at it, the Chicago Bears are having a decent day on offense, but so far not anything too incredible. The defense is playing good. They've had 2 really poor drives, and I'd say 2 really good drives. But the second half really wasn't very strong for the Detroit Lions, right? They start off 4 plays, 23 yards. You run the ball really well to pick up a first down. You run the ball really well to get to 3rd and 2 off of a 2nd and 7. And then you go shotgun, throw an incomplete pass, and punt the football. The Chicago Bears go on a 10-play, 50-yard drive to score a field goal and put it within 1. And then the Detroit Lions fumble the ensuing kickoff. The Chicago Bears go 3 plays for 40 yards in a minute 51, and they score a touchdown. They're back in front. The Detroit Lions come out and they throw an interception in 5 plays, giving the Chicago Bears the ball back. And then a 7-play, 20-yard drive leads the Detroit Lions to a field goal. Now, I'm not going to say that the Detroit Lions defense was awful in this game. I think they were improved from the game versus the Los Angeles Chargers, but they still were not very good. I think this last field goal, 7 plays for 20 yards, was probably arguably their best defense of the day, right? Because, yeah, you can argue Jared Goff threw that pick. It was really, really bad, but you still gave up 40 yards on the touchdown play off the turnover. I know it's turnovers, but your defense still has to stand up, right? Touchdown off the turnover, 40 yards in 3 plays. Not good. 10 plays, 50 yards, even after a punt. Not very good, right? 15, 62 yards and points, not very good. And even though it was a, interception, even though there were turnovers, your defense still has to step up. They were still getting beat by the mobile quarterback. And on big moments in major situations, the Detroit Lions defense really didn't stand up to play. So Jared Goff throws his 3rd interception. Chicago Bears get a field goal. They punt. The Chicago Bears get a field goal. And then this is where the Detroit Lions turned it around with 4 minutes left in the game. Down by 2 possessions, the Detroit Lions go on a 6-play, 75-yard drive. Dart, 33-yard touchdown to Jameson Williams. Push the Detroit Lions back within 1. The defense then finally shows up for the first time, and they give up 1 yard on 3 plays to take 26 seconds off the clock. The Chicago Bears punt. The Lions go on an 11-play, 73-yard touchdown drive, capped off by David Montgomery, the former Chicago Bear, finding his way into the end zone. The Detroit Lions go back out on offense with 26 seconds left. Aiden Hutchinson finally gets around the edge, strips Justin Fields, puts the ball in the end zone, and the Detroit Lions stack up some points, walking away with a 5-point victory on essentially a walk-off safety for the Detroit Lions. So overall, a bad game for the Detroit Lions, right? Yes, they scored 31 points, but really outside of 7 minutes, 2 in the last quarter, 2 minutes at the end of the first half, and 4 minutes at the end of the game, the Detroit Lions were not the better football team, and the offense certainly had some struggles, but I think their struggles were outliers. They were moving the ball really well. It's the turnovers that killed us. It was the crazy outlier plays, right? The tipped interception, the odd pass interference where Sam Laporta got tackled before the ball got to him and was picked off, right? There were 2 interceptions that were really poor. There was a fumble that was really bad, and there was an interception that was really bad. That's 4 turnovers that at least 2 of them I would say were fluky plays, and at least 3 of them likely won't happen again for the Detroit Lions. The special teams turnover is very rare. The interceptions are very rare, and the tip passes happen, and it just happens to be unlucky. But the offense figured out. The offense found a way. And to their credit, the defense stood up and made some plays as well. But again, they just had a lot of issues. They really couldn't contain Justin Fields. They really couldn't contain DJ Moore. They really couldn't contain anybody. And even against a mediocre offensive line, the pass rush really wasn't there until the last couple of drives of the game, right? We go through one more time just to take a look at it: a 10-play, 75-yard touchdown drive, and then you have a couple defensive stands, a 15-play, 62-yard drive resulting in points. You have a 10-play, 50-yard drive resulting in points, a 3-play, 40-yard drive resulting in 7, a 7-play 20-yard drive resulting in 3. That was one of their better defensive stands of the game. And then, of course, you have a 14-play 70-yard drive against the Chicago Bears, a team that is not a very good scoring offense. You allowed 26, and you allowed 5 different drives of almost 70 plus yards, right? You allow so many yards, so many points. And when it was third down, there was a major penalty. When it was 3rd and 14, Justin Fields scrambled for 30. The ability to stop the Russian quarterback is non-existent for the Detroit Lions, and it just really wasn't a very good game outside of those last 2 to 3 minutes of each half. Now, let's take a look at the box score, because I think the Detroit Lions had some good moments. I think they had some good players. But again, I think they were slightly outperformed by Chicago. Justin Fields, in his first game back from his thumb injury, was 16 of 23, 169 yards, and 1 touchdown, a 73.9 quarterback rating, but also had 104 yards on the ground for 18 carries. Again, the inability to stop the mobile quarterback is the biggest downfall of the Detroit Lions right now. The wide receivers for Chicago were okay. DJ Moore, 7 for 96 and a touchdown. The Lions very much could not stop DJ Moore. Darnell Mooney had a nice catch. You have Cole Kmet, who made a little bit of an impact, and Equanimeous St. Brown didn't quite have the impact of his brother, but was pretty good for what he was asked to do. Chicago Bears did have a couple of fumbles. Both Tyler Scott and Justin Fields did fumble the football. Tyler Scott did lose his. That was the sole turnover for the Detroit Lions, but a good big play for them. But defensively, they were pretty strong. TJ Edwards is a player we talked about in the video kind of previewing this game. We talked about how TJ Edwards is one of the most underrated linebackers in the NFL, and I think he very much showed that. 9 total tackles, 1 pass defended, 1 interception. Tremaine Edmonds had an interception. I believe it was Tyreek Stevenson who had the 3rd interception. Their defense was really, really good. Yeah, it was Tremaine Edmonds, Tyreek Stevenson, and TJ Edwards all picking off Jared Goff in major situations. And then Chicago's kicker was really good. 4 for 4, 100%, long of 53. He was great. And Riley Patterson only kicked field goals that day. Offensively for the Detroit Lions, you had Jared Goff, who was 25 of 35, 236 yards and 2 touchdowns. Doesn't sound bad, except for the 3 interceptions, 2 of which came on the first 2 drives of the game for the Detroit Lions. Only a 68.3 rating and a 50.5 QBR. He was a worse quarterback than Justin Fields was yesterday. Rushing the football, they were pretty good. Jahmyr Gibbs had 8 carries for 36 yards, 4.5 a carry, and a touchdown. Well, David Montgomery kind of had a revenge game, 12 carries, 76 yards, and a touchdown for himself. Amon-Ra St. Brown was really good at 8 receptions, 77 yards, and a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs was a big factor in the receiving game, 6 for 59. Well, Jameson Williams, of course, had the 33-yard dagger that put the Detroit Lions back in a position to win. David Montgomery, Sam Laporta, Josh Reynolds, and Khalif Raymond all also contributed in the passing game, and Donovan Peoples-Jones only had 1 target on the game. Unfortunately, though, it was picked off by TJ Edwards. Craig Reynolds had a fumble that was lost. Alex Anzalone had a fumble that was recovered. And going on to the defensive side of the ball, it was pretty atrocious. There's a lot of tackles, but there's not a lot of splashy plays. Alex Anzalone had 15 total tackles and a fumble recovery. Jack Campbell missed a lot of tackles, but also had 9 on the day. Derek Barnes had 8. Brian Branch had probably one of his better days as a pro, 6 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and a pass defended with a quarterback hit. I think he was the best defender on the field for the Detroit Lions, followed shortly by Aiden Hutchinson. 6 tackles, 1 sack, game-winning sack, forced fumble, safety. It was not a great performance all day, but in the big moments, Aiden Hutchinson did come up clutch, and it was a big factor for the Detroit Lions. Other than that, though, really poor. Brian Branch was good. Aiden Hutchinson was good. Everybody else on the defensive side of the ball was very, very underwhelming. Aleem McNeil did come away with a sack, which was nice to see. And I do think Quinton Bohannon is a player that could potentially see more time. He played primarily at the nose tackle position, did have a tackle for loss, and actually looked pretty solid. So there are about 4 players that performed adequately or above average. Alex Anzalone was pretty good. Branch was pretty good. Aiden Hutchinson was okay at times. And then, of course, you do have Quinton Bohannon, who wasn't even so much as surprising coming off the practice squad, and Aleem McNeil. 5 defenders played well. everybody else, including Aaron Glenn, did not have the best day on the defensive side of the football. So, with that being said, just kind of some genuine reactions. I don't think the Detroit Lions were very good. I think that they very much are missing another edge rusher. I think they're very much missing a little bit of depth and quality at cornerback. Their safety play has been good, but not great. Their linebackers were okay, but over pursued and missed a lot of tackles. And some of that comes with the territory of taking on Justin Fields. Justin Fields is a dynamic athlete. He's going to make your defenders look silly sometimes. I totally understand that. I totally get that Justin Fields is going to run for 100 yards on anybody. I 100% understand that Justin Fields is quite honestly a very talented quarterback, that the Detroit Lions are not good at stopping the mobile quarterback. So it was a recipe for disaster for the Detroit Lions defensive philosophies. But it has to get better, right? Even if you're missing a pass rusher, Aiden Hutchinson is good. Aleem McNeil is good. You should be able to find some pressure with two pretty good defensive linemen and pass rushers. Even if it's not an elite pass rush, you should be able to get home a couple times a game before the very last defensive play of the game, where really he has no choice but to hold on to the ball as long as possible. The Chicago Bears had more first downs. They had more total plays. They had more time of possession. They won the turnover battle. They had actually somehow they had 4 less total yards on the same amount of drives. They had less passing yards, but they had significantly more rushing yards. They were actually more penalized, which is surprising, but the Detroit Lions had penalties in a lot more crucial situations. And again, these are the big ones. Turnovers, 4-1. Time of possession, 40.23 to 1936. It was not great by the Detroit Lions, but they found a way to work. They found a way to win this football game, and somehow the Detroit Lions walked out 8-2. They now have 4 days to prepare for the Green Bay Packers at home on Thanksgiving to improve to 9-2, 3-0 in the division, 5-1 at home. Overall, this game was a little disappointing for sure, but I think it also showed that the Detroit Lions are good enough to dig themselves out of holes, right? If they find themselves down a possession or two, I think it showed the ability to be a quick strike offense. It showed the ability that they can come back. They will continue to fight. And even though this game was very much an outlier, I don't think we're going to see much of a repeat. I don't think we're going to see another game where Jared Goff throws 3 interceptions. I don't think we're going to see another game where we have 4 turnovers as a team, and we have to make that kind of comeback. So if the defense can tighten up a little bit, if the pass rush can be a little bit better, if the secondary can be a little tighter and not allow so many big plays over the top, I think we can still win quite a few games. I think we can still win the division, which I think is pretty much locked up at this point, barring an absolute catastrophe on the defensive side of the ball, which, could happen with a certain defensive coordinator at the helm. But overall, I think the Detroit Lions are still a very good team. This felt very similar to a Minnesota Vikings victory from a season ago where you really didn't deserve to win. You had so many turnovers, so many opportunities to lose the game, and somehow the Bears just out-Lionsed the SOL Lions. So with all that being said, that is I for you guys today. Just kind of a quick, genuine reaction video, kind of get all my thoughts out there. The Lions didn't play very good, but they played good enough to win. I think it showed that they are a good enough team to beat anybody despite not playing very good football. I think this was the worst football they've played all year, and somehow they still walked out with a victory over a team like the Bears that's pretty scrappy and a little bit talented. So with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. We'll be back tomorrow with a preview for the Green Bay Packers game. We'll talk about that on Thanksgiving, talk about who should win that game and how that game should look. But with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions.